Welcome to World Prism. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon for more breaking updates. In October 2025, China, the world's largest oil importer, stunned global markets by abruptly halting all U.S. crude oil purchases. The announcement came without warning, sending shockwaves through the energy sector and leaving analysts scrambling to understand the full implications. Overnight, a major artery of global oil trade was severed, and the world watched as the consequences began to unfold. This wasn't a minor trade spat. It was a seismic shift in global energy politics. The decision reverberated through trading floors and boardrooms, as investors and governments alike tried to gauge the impact on prices, supply chains, and international relations. Oil prices spiked, and uncertainty gripped the market. The move stranded millions of barrels of American oil, forcing U.S. producers to scramble for new buyers and sending shockwaves through financial markets from Houston to Shanghai. Tankers that were en route suddenly had nowhere to dock, and contracts worth billions were thrown into limbo. The ripple effects were immediate and far-reaching. For years, China had been a cornerstone customer for U.S. oil, supporting jobs and growth across America. The relationship had helped stabilize prices and fostered cooperation between two economic giants, creating a sense of mutual dependence that many thought was unbreakable. Now, that relationship was shattered overnight. Decades of trust and negotiation were undone in a single announcement, leaving both sides to pick up the pieces and reassess their strategies. The timing was critical, coming amid rising tensions and sanctions disrupting global supply chains. With trade wars escalating and diplomatic ties fraying, the oil halt became a symbol of a much larger struggle for influence and control in the 21st century. China's halt was a bold declaration. It would not accept U.S. dominance in global trade. The message was clear. China was willing to endure short-term pain to assert its independence and reshape the rules of international commerce. The American oil industry was left reeling, forced to urgently rethink export strategies. Companies scrambled to find alternative markets, while policymakers debated how to respond to this unprecedented challenge. This move proved that in today's world, energy and politics are inseparable, and the rules can change in an instant. As the dust settled, one thing was certain: the global energy landscape would never be the same again. To understand China's move, look to Russia. The story begins with a series of bold decisions that would reshape the global oil market and international alliances. In the wake of rising tensions, the world watched as the U.S. sought to isolate Russia economically, hoping to force a change in Moscow's behavior. Earlier that month, the Trump administration imposed sweeping sanctions on Russia's oil giants, Rosneft and Lukoil, aiming to choke off Kremlin funding by pressuring buyers like China and India to abandon Russian crude. The move was designed to hit Russia where it hurt most, its lucrative energy sector, which funds much of the government's activities at home and abroad. The U.S. expected China to turn to American oil instead. Washington believed that by cutting off Russia's access to its biggest customers, it could redirect global oil flows in its own favor, boosting American exports and influence. But Beijing had other plans. While Chinese companies paused Russian oil purchases to comply with U.S. sanctions, they didn't switch to U.S. suppliers. Instead, Chinese officials weighed their options carefully, considering both economic and political consequences. Instead, China retaliated by halting all U.S. oil imports, a direct blow to American interests. This unexpected move sent shockwaves through the American energy sector, which had anticipated a surge in exports to China. This strategic countermove exposed a flaw in Washington's plan, uniting Moscow and Beijing against perceived U.S. overreach. Rather than isolating Russia, the sanctions pushed two of America's biggest rivals closer together, forging a new partnership in defiance of Western pressure. China's message was clear: it would not be a pawn in America's geopolitical games. By refusing to play along, Beijing asserted its independence and signaled its willingness to challenge U.S. dominance on the world stage. The result: a complex standoff, with the global energy market caught in the crossfire. Oil prices fluctuated, trade routes shifted, and uncertainty rippled through economies worldwide, highlighting just how interconnected and unpredictable global power struggles have become. News of China's oil embargo sent global oil markets into chaos. The announcement came as a shock to traders and analysts alike, who had not anticipated such a drastic move. Prices swung wildly, Sanctions on Russia pushed prices up, but China's halt on U.S. crude created a glut, pushing U.S. prices down. The volatility was unprecedented, with minute-by-minute changes leaving traders scrambling to keep up. Brent crude surged, while West Texas Intermediate, WTI, plummeted, widening the gap between the two benchmarks. This divergence highlighted the fragmented nature of the global oil market, where regional politics could drastically alter pricing dynamics. U.S. oil cargoes bound for China had to be rerouted, creating logistical nightmares and soaring shipping costs. Shipping companies faced unprecedented challenges, with many vessels left stranded at sea, awaiting new orders. The entire trading ecosystem was thrown into disarray, with insurance premiums rising and long-term planning impossible. Companies struggled to adapt to the new reality, with many meetings canceled and strategies hastily revised. The actions of just two nations, China and the US, were enough to sow panic worldwide. The ripple effects were felt across continents, affecting not just oil markets but global financial stability. Investors feared the escalating dispute could tip the global economy into recession, further depressing oil demand. The uncertainty led to a sell-off in stocks, with many fearing the worst was yet to come. The market was left in a whirlwind of speculation, anxiously awaiting the next move from the world's energy superpowers. The future remained uncertain, with everyone on edge, watching and waiting for the next development. Facing a crisis threatening both the U.S. economy and his political standing, President Trump launched a diplomatic offensive. He accelerated trade talks with China, sending top officials to Kuala Lumpur for urgent negotiations. Within days, both sides announced a framework for a trade deal, averting crippling tariffs and delaying China's planned restrictions on rare earth exports. Trump also moved to reassure the U.S. oil industry, reaffirming support for domestic production and opening new areas for exploration. Through public statements and social media, he projected control and resilience, framing the crisis as a temporary disruption being managed through deal-making. The goal: calm markets, stabilize oil prices, and reinforce his image as a master negotiator steering the world back from the brink. While the world watched the US-China standoff, India faced its own crisis. As a major importer of Russian oil, India was directly threatened by US sanctions on Rosneft and Lukoil. Losing access to discounted Russian crude would raise India's import bill and strain its economy. Indian refiners scrambled to secure alternative supplies from West Asia, Africa, and the US, but at a higher cost. Meanwhile, Indian investments in Russian energy were trapped by sanctions, compounding the challenge. India was forced to walk a diplomatic tightrope, balancing its strategic partnership with the US against its energy ties to Russia. The crisis highlighted how US actions could create unintended consequences for allies, forcing countries like India to navigate a treacherous path to safeguard their energy security. The OPEC+ alliance, led by Saudi Arabia, watched the turmoil with both concern and opportunity. The disruption of Russian and US exports created a vacuum OPEC+ could fill, but a price spike risked harming the global economy. In response, a coalition of OPEC+ nations discussed a modest production increase for December 2025, not to flood the market, but to reassure consumers and cap prices. This move aimed to stabilize markets and reclaim lost market share, especially in Asia. However, the alliance faced internal divisions, with some members exceeding quotas and Russia's position complicating decisions. Ultimately, OPEC+ used strategic ambiguity. Just discussing a production hike was enough to calm markets, demonstrating their influence without risking internal fractures. The events of October 2025 have redrawn the global energy map. Oil is once again a tool of statecraft, wielded by superpowers to achieve geopolitical aims. The US used financial dominance to punish Russia. China responded by leveraging its market power against the US. The crisis forced nations to rethink energy security, accelerating efforts by China and Russia to build alternative trading systems insulated from US sanctions. The future may see oil trade split between rival blocs, with alliances dictating flows more than price. For countries like India, this means diversifying suppliers and balancing competing powers. While a partial thaw in US-China relations offered hope, the underlying tensions remain. The world must now prepare for a more fragmented, unpredictable era in global energy, where stability is never guaranteed.